great for Louis Central Wrestling and the tradition that we have. Also like to thank Charlotte Butterbaugh. She was helping check people in out there. She takes care of, she's been working with the Louis Central Wrestling program for years, and she helps us out every year. And are you here, Charlotte? There she is, right over there. Next, I have every year I have some team parents that help me organize things and help me take care of getting information out to the team, and I have a couple of them here tonight. So I would like to recognize Lori Southard and Becky Kupta. Back there in the back. And also Mid-America Center, Mark McCanny is one of our ex-wrestlers. Help us get this thing going tonight. When we approached Mark with this idea of having this here, and we were researching different facilities, and asked Mark if this was available tonight, and he was kind of excited because they had this cheerleading thing going on, and then they've got this tattoo thing, and you can't have a wedding reception with that kind of stuff going on. He said, this will work out really well. The wrestlers don't care about that stuff. So like I said, Craig Wilberding approached me before last season about doing something with an animal shirt reunion, and it grew into an all wrestling alumni reunion between then and now. And as part of that, I've had a year to think about what do we want to get out of this, what's our goals, why are we getting together, and what is this all about? And part of it is just making connections from the past and getting to see each other again. But we want to do more than that. We want to get more out of this night. We want to build this community, this Louis Central Wrestling community, and recognize the tradition that we've had. Coach Massey and I were at Fort Dodge tournament last year, and we were, our kids, we've been going to Fort Dodge wrestling tournament forever. Most of you wrestlers here wrestled there. And we noticed that all the table workers and all the different mats were ex-Fort Dodge wrestlers. We recognized all these guys from the past, and we said, wouldn't it be great if we had that kind of connection to our wrestlers from the past to come back and help with things like that? And so that's part of what we want to build tonight. We want to build that connection from past wrestlers to the current wrestlers to the Louis Central tradition, Louis Central wrestling tradition. And so there are sheets on all of your tables where we can collect some information from you with your name and email address, what year you graduated, or if you were a wrestler, or even if you're a parent. We'd love to collect that information so that as events come up in our wrestling program, we can let you know about it. We can let you know we're going to be talking about a scholarship later tonight, and we can let you know who's receiving those scholarships each year. We can let you know about opportunities to volunteer, opportunities to help the program, and just keep you informed on what's going on with Louis Central Wrestling, so we can keep that community, keep that connection going. There's many different opportunities that we can let you know about where you can help out, volunteer, and contribute to this program to keep it as strong as it is and even grow it stronger. So tonight, there's a lot of things to go through. We have, this is the first time we've done this, and we have, how many years has Louis Central Wrestling program been around? 45 years? 50? I don't know. So there's a lot of material to cover. So bear with us. We've got a lot of presentations, and we're not everybody's going to get something tonight. Not everybody's going to get recognized, because it's just there's such a tradition. There's such talented people here, and we just wouldn't be able to do it all in one night, and it would just be too long. So bear with us. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to recognize a lot of people, and then at the end of the presentations tonight, we have this room, I think, until 11 o'clock. So feel free to hang out and socialize, and we might even continue it after that if anybody wants to stick around and continue to socialize, find somewhere to do that. Also, on that form on your table, at the top is some social media addresses. We have a Facebook address and a Twitter handle. So if you guys, if you want to follow Lewis Central Wrestling, we have somebody at every one of our meets is tweeting information about the matches and what the score is and how we're doing. And so any of you guys that want to continue to get updates on how we're doing in real time, that's how you can do that. So the agenda for tonight, we're going to recognize several lifetime contributions. We're going to hear some words from some previous Lewis Central wrestling coaches. We're going to introduce our current wrestlers, our current lineup for our districts next weekend. We're going to honor the animals. We're going to have some featured speakers. Then we're going to just kind of recognize the attendees, who's here, and recognize different groups of people that are here. And then at the end of the night, we're going to have an opportunity for any of you to come up and tell a story. We're going to have an open mic. So this is your warning. You've got time to think about what do you want to say, if you want to come up and tell a story or recognize anybody. This will be your opportunity at the end of all the presentations tonight. So first, let's start with the Lifetime Contribution Award. And these people don't know that they're getting this. So this is a surprise to them. We have several different awards. Our first recipient of Lifetime Contribution Awards are Lou and Dana Massey. You all know who these guys are. I don't need to say much about them because you already know, but probably half the wrestlers in this room were coached by Lou, or more. When he was looking at the guys at the animal shirt picture the other night, he was saying that he thinks every one of those kids was wrestling. It was wrestling for him when they were beginners. Dinah has spent countless hours bracketing freestyle and Greco tournaments. She is, I think, the highest ranked bracketer in the state. I don't know what the right term is.
The
only pairing director. That's not pairing.
No, the only pair who has a 1 at this time.
Only pair that have a 1 at this time. Okay.
That's the highest.
That's the highest.
All right. So that takes lots of years of work and dedication to the sport. So I think these two are deserving of this award. Thank you guys.
All right.
Our next recipient, Cheryl Jensen. Would you please come up here? Cheryl's receiving this in honor of herself and her late husband, Wes. Wes spent countless hours with the big guys in the room, from 7th and 8th graders on up through high school, and he loved working with those big guys and teaching them how to wrestle the big guys style, and had a lot of success. And I know some of my current wrestlers have connections to Wes, that he trained those guys in middle school. And so when Wes passed away 3 years ago, they started a scholarship in his name. And so because that's going to continue, and we really appreciate their contribution, Cheryl is receiving this award. Our next recipient was a coach at Lewis Central for 16 years. He retired in 1994. You can find his name in the South Dakota Hall of Fame, the Iowa Hall of Fame, the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I'm sure many of us have stories about Coach Bluff. So we can, think of those. We can tell those later at the end of the night. So yeah, make sure you're ready for that. But I've asked Coach Bluff to say a few words tonight, and he's going to receive this Lifetime Contribution Award and also say a few words. Coach Bluff.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of this award. I certainly don't deserve it. There's a lot of other people that have done all this work, and I want to make sure you can hear me. Can you hear? Okay. I told Doug that I was going to talk a little bit about where we came from, not just Lewis Central, but wrestling. And I hope you'll give me the indulge with whatever I want to say. You know what I mean. I started in wrestling in 1961. It wasn't the Stone Age. It was the Stoned Age. And I was very proud of the first day I went to. I'll tell you. I'll go back a little bit. My high school football, basketball, and track coach, government teacher, and superintendent. I was kind of a small school. He heard I was going to college, and he called me in his office, and I figured I was in trouble again, but he said, "Hey, I hear you're going to school. I think you should look into wrestling." And I said, "Oh, Coach, those guys jumping off the third ring up ropes and down on me, I'm only 125 pounds. They'll crush me." Well, after a few minutes, he picked himself off the floor from laughing so hard. And he said, "Well, college wrestling isn't like that. And I really do think you'll like it. So you get a chance, look into it." And one day I was roaming around campus trying to find my way back to the dorm. I was stalling because I didn't know if I got back to the dorm I'd have to study. And saw this notice saying, "Anybody interested in wrestling, show up at room so-and-so on such and such a date, such and such a time." And I thought about it, well, okay, I'll give it a try. I'll go see what it's like. And I went in that room, there was 14 guys, obviously older, and there was five of us that were newbies. And that was the wrestling team. And they were so glad to see me come in that room. I was never greeted so warmly in all my young life. And the next day we went over and got gear to practice in, and we went to where we were going to have practice the next day, and I knew why they were happy to see me. I started wrestling on a mat that was 5 inches thick, full of horsehair, rolled up, and at the bottom of the steps, and we had to take it up 38 steps. And they were happy that I was there to help them. We had to use an old classroom. The year before, the main building had burned down, so we're using this old classroom in an industrial arts building. And we pushed the chairs aside, and we put the mat down, we put a cover over it. And once a week, at the end of the week, we would scrub it real good, have it ready for the next week. And then at the end of practice, we would roll things up and carry them down the steps. I found out after the first day I didn't want to be in the front of that mat, in front of that road going downhill. And I think we all had to jockey or wrestle for a position. And the coach was a football coach. He was a big guy. He had played for the Minnesota Vikings. He didn't know a lot about wrestling. They gave him the job because he needed extra money. He was a family man and he needed some extra money. So they gave him the job of wrestling coach. And the first day of practice, we were out there loosening. We were loosening up. We had Norm as the captain of the team. He was the oldest guy. And they kind of went around the room and asked, what was your career of wrestling? what had you done? They came to me and I said, well, I'm undefeated in high school. I never wrestled, but I tried a little bit of wrestling, but even West River girls, cowgirls, they're tougher than I was. So I wasn't very successful there either. But we started trying to wrestle, and the coach would say, okay, Norm, you show us how you do your takedown. And Norm got out there. Norm got us positioned, told us how to get our legs positioned, get our arms out. And that was Norm's position for takedown. I thought, well, that can't be too hard. I think I can handle that. Then the next kid showed us how to use a tight waist. Grab a tight waist, pull it, grab the arm bar, hold it in there, put a head lever in, get a chance. You feel the guy giving up a little bit, get a chance, put the half Nelson in and turn him over. Just real easy. Yeah, I think I can handle that. And then got paired up with a kid named Lanny Mowry. I love the kid. He didn't like me much. But we worked out for about a half an hour. And the coach said, okay, time to take a rest. I said, okay. I mean, you guys always got that rest, right? I said, okay, we laid down. We rested for about 5 minutes. I looked around and I said, boy, I really love this. This is great. And that's the way I felt about it for all of my life from that day on. This was a great sport. Well, how did that work out for me? I was not the varsity, of course, even though I was undefeated. We had 6 matches scheduled. And we were after the 5th match, the coach came in the room and said, hey guys, we got a chance to wrestle another college that's 100 miles away. We got to go up there and then they'll come back. If we go up there, they'll come back down here. Do you want to do it? And everybody said yes. And they got down there, oh, by the way, Glenn, we've got an exhibition match for you. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll take it. So now on my resume, I can say that I'm an exhibitionist. We got in 2 cars, we got 2 of those long station wagons, if you remember, the grocery getters. And the coach and 5 guys, well actually 6 guys, 5 wrestlers, coach, and the other, Lanny was going to get to be an exhibitionist too. He got in the one car, and they put him way in the back. And I figured, well, I guess that's where I'm going. And then the guy, the guy that was teaching everybody everything, how to do takedowns, he got to drive the other car, and the other 4 biggest wrestlers were in the car, and they put me in the car. And I didn't last long. I was in the back, and it was cold back there. In the middle of South Dakota winter, going into North Dakota, it got colder as I went. But I got a chance to wrestle. And was given a uniform. I got up there, we was given a uniform, and I found out what it's like to be into old age. I think I had to go to the bathroom about 6 times before I wasn't too nervous. I was real nervous. And it was just like I do now. Going to the bathroom wasn't an easy chore back then. You have your jock strap. It's a little different today. You say, pull up your jock strap and get out there and go after them. Today you got to say, pull up your Spanx and go get them. It doesn't really have the same identity. But then you put on your tights, and then you put on a onesie, and you had to button it in front, and then you put on over tights, a little pair of shorts. And we were maroon, with a yellow streak, and maroon, and yellow lettering on our jersey. And you go to the bathroom a lot of times, that's the trouble. You really got to work to get down there. And I finally got the chance to go out in a wrestling match. And here I was, I got my stance, and I circled, and the guy kind of followed me. I thought, what's going on? I thought I had him dizzy. I really did. I went a little while, and I really thought I had him dizzy. And the takedown we had was the old Dwayne Kilgard double-leg football tackle. Take him down, get after it. Well, we tried that. I just thought, well, I'm ready for him now. I'm going to make my shot. I made my shot, and within seconds, I knew I was going to be a standout wrestler. Because he snapped me down, put my head in the mat, blood splattered all over, and he was right behind me, and I lost the takedown. But I did go out and stand. I was out standing by the first aid box, cleaning up my blood and stuffing cotton in my nose. And I'm saying to myself, gee, that was kind of unusual. I didn't expect that. I never saw that in practice. But I went back out. Oh, by the way, the first aid box was also the spit box. So, you know, things have lived. Good thing Dave is here. He's cleaned things up a little bit. But anyway, that match, I was down, and I made my first move, put my head up, and he was a little bit too high, and I hit him in the face, and he backed off, and I got my escape. Oh, this can't be too tough. Got into the second period, and I chose up, and he did a switch on me. I was practicing a switch. I knew what a switch was, and he wasn't supposed to do it as hard as he did it a lot harder than Lanny ever did to me in practice. And again, I was down on my face, and I've got my arm back around him yet, and everybody, my teammates are hollering, re-switch, re-switch, re-switch. I'm saying, what the hell are you talking about? I've never heard of that before. Well, he switched me. Now the score is 2-1. And then this third period comes along, and he's on top, and he gets that tight waist, and arm bar in, and he's pulling it and tugging it. And 8 minutes and 45 seconds later, his arm gets tired, and I slip out, and I get another escape. And he's ahead of me at the end of the match. The score is 6-2. Now, he's only scored 4 points, but he's got 6 on the scoreboard. A little bit of riding, a thing called riding time. And so that was the end of the match. I didn't lose that match. I was just behind when time ran out. And that's the way I approached all the rest of my matches. And most of the time, I was behind when time ran out. We got a chance to wrestle at school again. And this time the varsity wrestler was the exhibitionist. And the guy that I wrestled was on the varsity. And I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to work out so well. But we were going along, and it was a pretty close match. There were no takedowns. I learned how to not get snapped down again. And I learned to re-switch, so I was able to follow the guy around in the second period. And in the third period, I'm down, and the guy's got a tight waist and a head lever on me, and I'm really tight. I'm working the hands, and I'm burying my head in the mat, and I can't get anything going, and I look up at the coach, saying, like, what am I going to do? And he hollers out, put in a half. I'm saying, I'm so bad that the coach is hollering for the other guy. I got a lot to learn. And I did everything I could to learn. I wanted to come back the next year and show the coach that I could, that I had improved. Unfortunately, but it's a good fortune for me, he didn't coach again, and we got a pretty decent coach by the name of Don Woods. You've never heard of him, but he was a very good coach for me, and he would allow me to do things on the mat that he would not allow anybody else to do. And from that great experience that he allowed me to have, I decided that after I was through with college, I would continue to coach. And because of him, I'm continuing coaching. There's a lot of other things I'd like to say, but you don't have all night. And one thing, I've met some great people, some outstanding people. I see some of you here, you're so much better looking now than you were in high school. It's amazing. I can't believe how good looking you guys have got. And your girlfriends and your wives and whatever, they're good looking too. I never saw that when you were in high school. Anyway, there's a little tradition at the National Coaches Conference that they do to honor those that have passed. And I'd like to kind of maybe start that or explore that here tonight. I want to mention some people. I'd like to have you have your beverage in hand, whether it be water or your adult beverage or your child beverage or whatever it is. Please get a glass and have it in hand. And I will mention some names, and then I'm going to ask you to, my wife says, I don't say it's yours. I want to ask you to say salute. And first of all, the first people I want to mention, I got a small fraternity. Those people that have had the good fortune of sitting on the edge of the blue and white mat and cheering for you. And of the coaches, and while I'm doing this, I know I'm going to forget somebody, but if there is, I'm going to give you a chance to tell us, and we will salute them too. And I'll mention some names, and you take your glasses and salute. First of all, there's Frank DeBlasi, Dick Tannehill, and Wes Jensen. Salute. And you say it. There's Louis Massey and Ed Klotz. Salute. John Bevensey and Jeff Coyle and Bruce Probst. Salute. Do you have anybody that I've missed? You know somebody that has passed that I've missed? I'm sure there is. Think about it. If you know, give me a call.
Bill Newsom.
Wait.
Bill Newsom.
Bill Newsom. Salute. Anybody else?
Rich Emsick.
Well, he didn't wrestle Lewis Central, but
He coached.
Rich
He
Emsick.
coached.
Salute.
Salute.
At the National Coaches Conference, where I was honored, they have a ringing of the bell, and it's a tradition in wrestling. I didn't know this, but it's a tradition in wrestling that the bell, and they do this all day, just for all of those that have passed, that have their hearts in wrestling. We ring the bell, and I'll see if I can do it 10 times. Salute, all of you. Thank you very much.
Our next Lifetime Contribution Award followed Coach Bluff in his coaching career. Coach Massey took over the Little Central program after Coach Bluff retired. He had outstanding years at Little Central, influenced many of you guys that are here tonight, and you all know who he is, so I'm not going to go through all of the accolades, but Coach Massey will also get a Lifetime Contribution Award. And say a few words.
Cool. What a great crowd. First of all, let me apologize for
all the coughing I'm about to do, because I have come down with a nice cold here over the last few days, so my sniffling and coughing, I do apologize for. Second thing is, I got a few things in my pocket here, notes. What an honor it is to be here, and I thank all of you for being here. I tell you what, could not have been on a greater night in a cold winter that we've had here recently. So thank you for coming, and those of you who drove 4 hours or more or flew in from 12-hour drive away, and all of you that I haven't seen in years and years, great to have you guys here. What an appropriate place as well. Thank you, Mark McCanny. Did you see the wrestlers out there? Yeah, oh yeah. It has to be here. It has to be here. Hopefully we can have this on a yearly basis. It's awesome. I don't know if you guys remember, but my philosophy, well, when I first started coaching, I don't know if you guys know this, but when I was 16, it's your fault. I had a guy about, I don't know, I was looking at my bracket. Okay, if I beat him, and then he beats that guy, of course that never works out, ever. And then I heard this guy down here go, you know, all right, I got a kid from Lewis Central. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. So I turned to my best friend, Tim Topic, if you guys know him. He's from AL. And I go, you know, I want to come back. And put Lewis Central back on the map. That's all I ever wanted to do. So, this cold, I'm telling you. Wow. So that's my whole goal. That was everything I did in college. I wanted nothing else. So when I came back, luckily, Coach Clef was there, because nobody knows how to run a program better than him. Technique-wise, gosh, it's cold. Technique-wise, not everything, however, they cold. Yeah, technique-wise, luckily I just came from college, so I was ready to rock and roll on that. But how to run a program, integrity, be tough, know when to say no, tough love. Make sure that the thing that you got to do is make sure that the integrity is there. So my philosophy turned into learn life lessons through wrestling, and I've kept that ever since. Now, which there was a lot of kids that did not like to learn those life lessons, because sometimes the best lessons learned are the hardest ones learned. And I learned a lot of hard lessons, by the way, tons. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that we did was outwork everybody. So we got up every morning, lifting, running, and even we may have had a bad wrestling tournament, like at the state tournament once, in 40-degree wind chill weather, went running, because that was really fun. I could run back then, by the way. That was a blast. And those guys didn't know it, but what they learned from that day, when everything was closed, running in 40-degree negative, remember that? Holy cow. They got back, they're all pumped. Yeah, Mother Nature's nothing. Kicked her, you know. So that's awesome. The other philosophy I got was never give up on a kid. And Dad did that. God, I wanted to quit. Cried every day in practice. Got my butt beat from the age of 5 to about 8 every day. You're okay, keep moving. You're all right. Still a crybaby now. Keep going, you'll be fine. Evan Louie is killing me. I got bragging rights, I beat him last. I did. Beat me more, I beat him last. But anyway, those are the philosophies and those are the things that I wanted everybody, the kids that I'm coaching now, like Adam Bendorf's kids and any other kids, anybody else coaching, the wrestlers that I deal with right now, all those guys, you know, just keep going. And somebody asked me just the other day, you ever run into somebody you just said, you know what, you don't need to be in here? Couldn't think of one. Couldn't think of one. So, I just tell them to keep going. Thanks.
All right, so after Coach Massey came Coach Beeman. Coach Beeman could not be here tonight. He's coaching at Humboldt High School now, and they had their sectional tournament today. So he could not be here tonight. And then after Coach Beeman, we had Coach Carrot. Trevor Carrot now runs the Mid-America Classic Wrestling Tournament here at the Mid-America Center. That tournament is officially hosted by the Council of Schools, but he's the tournament director. So he's still involved in wrestling, and he still stays in contact with Lewis Central, and I know some of you guys here tonight wrestle for him, and I wish he could be here tonight, but he could not. He also could not be here. After Trevor came Coach Ryan Burke. He coached at Lewis Central for a couple of years. He also could not be here tonight. And then I took over 3 years ago, and following up those two guys and those other names that I mentioned, it's a lot to live up to. And when I said earlier, it was like I was talking to family out here. Some of you guys know the story, but some don't. But I think 2 or 3 days after I got the job, my mom passed away. And we had, we had visitation the next week, and there was about, 12 or 15 of the guys that I wrestled with that showed up. And that was, 20 years after we were done wrestling here. And, those two things happening at the same time with, me getting the job, and a couple of days later, my mom passing away, and then seeing all these guys come to support me. Wow, this is a family. And so, man, there's a lot of crying tonight. I think you gave me your cold. It hit me at that time that this program is more than any individual. This program is a long tradition of all you guys supporting each other and supporting this program. And I just want to foster that and honor the past and try to carry on some of the lessons that Coach Massey talked about with the current wrestling squad. So at this time, I would like to introduce the Lewis Central wrestlers that will be representing us as districts next weekend. It's kind of a fortunate time to have this because we have our lineup set, and we can kind of bring those guys up, and I can tell you a little bit about each one of these guys. So kind of make that connection from the past to the current. So the first guy, our 106-pounder, who is not here tonight. He's a 2-time state qualifier. He's a senior. He's ranked 6th in the state right now. He has a career record of 130 wins and 37 losses. Paxton Whitaker. And some of you guys, I don't know, his dad wrestled for Abraham Lincoln, so I don't know if some of you guys might remember Phil Whitaker. Paxton could not be here tonight. The next guy is a 113 pounder, is a freshman. He has a record this season of 9-13. And Dominic, would you come up here? Dominic's dad, some of you guys might recognize his dad, Mike Mayer, wrestled for Little Central with some of you guys. 120 pounder, Brandon Whelan is a sophomore. Current record of 20-6. And I'm trying to make connections to the past too, so some of you guys might recognize.
This is for you, Coach.
I told him I couldn't eat dessert tonight. Brandon Whelan's mom is was Patches Kell and Uncle Mike Kell, so some of you guys might recognize that name from the past. The next wrestler, 126 pounder, Gabe Kelgard, is a returning state qualifier. He's a sophomore, and he has a record of 35-13. Kyle Kukta, 132 pounder. He is also a returning state qualifier. He's last year, the last month of the season, this guy really came on strong for some reason. I don't know what it is about him, but he's doing the same thing this year. It's wait till the last month, and then he really comes on strong. So expect to see something good out of him. 132 pounder Kyle Kukta. Nathan Charleston is our 138 pounder. Nathan is a junior. He cracked the lineup this year, so this is his first year wrestling a lot of varsity matches. Nathan's current record is 14-27. Nathan Charleston. Caleb Kingston, 145 pounder, is a freshman, doing real well as a freshman. His record is 32-16. 152 pounder, Max Southern. Mac is a junior. He's a two-time state qualifier. Placed 6th last year. Currently ranked 2nd in the state. Has a record of 19-2, and his dad wrestled for Abraham Lincoln. So I don't know if you guys remember Bill Southern. Corey Lear, 160 pounder, senior, ranked 10th in the state right now. His record is 35-12, and his dad was a Little Central alum, Rob Lear. I don't know if Rob's here tonight. 170 pounder, Colton Lear. Looks kind of like the previous guy. He's also a senior. He's 35-15. 182 pounder, Damon Dale. Sophomore, 21-9. Damon, this is his first year cracking the lineup, and he's kind of shared this spot this year. And Damon just had a couple tough matches in the mat room. We had, since he was sharing the spot this year, it came down to this late in the season, we do 2 out of 3 wrestle-offs. And they each won one of the first 2, so it was 1-1 going into wrestle-off yesterday. Damon was behind 6-1 yesterday in the wrestle-off and came back to win the match. That just shows you what kind of heart he has and what he wants to accomplish. 195 pounder, Hayden Waldstein. Hayden is a 2-time state qualifier. He is a senior. He is 21-12. Hayden Waldstein. 220 pounder, Tanner Miller. He's a senior. He is 24-16, and expect a lot out of him. He wrestled some varsity last year. Took his sophomore year off. I think now he's wishing he would have not taken that year off because he's really coming on strong now, and expect a lot out of him the next week or so. Then our heavyweight, Travis Thompson, senior, 19-29, came up, started wrestling for the first time last year, and he was our varsity guy last year and this year, and he's figured it out now. Last night, or our last duel, those of you that were at that last duel, I think was maybe the best match I've seen him wrestle. It's perfect time to learn and to peak. So, good job, guys. Before you guys I want you wrestlers up here to look out at these guys and look at your future. I don't know if it's good. But anybody who wrestled at districts, would you please stand? Wrestled at districts. All right. Look at that. All right. What I'd like you guys to recognize is all the work that you guys have put in this year and all the effort you've been doing. You walk through the halls at school, and those kids that don't wrestle, they don't understand. Those kids, those teachers, they don't understand. Unless you've wrestled and gone through this sport, you don't get it. These guys all get it. They all understand what you guys have gone through this year, and that's something special. That's a special connection that you don't get from just anybody walking down the street. Even your parents sometimes don't get it. So these guys are Blue Central Past. They're here to support you, and I want to make this connection so that you guys see who's representing you, and I want these guys to understand that you guys have their back, and you guys are rooting for these guys next weekend at Districts and State. All right, you guys got it? Next, I'd like to bring Craig Wowarding up here to do a presentation.
Good evening. It is my turn. We designated 15 minutes for Doug. It was really good. So this is, I've been in town since Thursday, and it's been LC wrestling and animal nonstop. And again, we've talked about this. For those that were there Thursday night, we went through this. We're going to go through it a little bit again. You don't know if you're making an impact or what's happening until John Fuller came to me today and told me that the lady behind the counter at IV said, "Are you the animal?" It's gone viral. And then just a couple stories. I'm gonna go pretty quick. But listen to Keith talk, and then Todd Clapper brought it up because he remembered when I was a freshman, I was lucky enough to beat two upperclassmen to put myself in a position to wrestle to be on the JV, right? And the JV, then you're the backup to the varsity. So most freshmen, when they finally wrestle through wrestle offs to make JV, they think they're going to wrestle a JV match. Well, Keith goes and gets hurt. Yes. And so I went to, I can't remember if it was Atlantic. And I think Coach Bluff knew I must have been a little nervous. He goes, "Are you sure? Because I can let Bruce Leahy take your spot." Are you sure? I'm like, no, this is mine. I want this. About 30 seconds into the first period, I was sure hoping Bruce Leahy actually gave it up. Wrestle offs are the greatest thing in sports. They're the most honest, most pure, most integrity thing they have in all sports. It's the greatest thing. And then just real quick, because the irony, I'm sitting back there with my brother and Jay Gunther and Drew Rogers. And the irony is that, for those that don't know Jay Gunther and Drew Rogers, I had a brother that was a practical joke. I had my fair of practical jokes as a young man. Well, for some reason, Jay Gunther and Drew Rogers thought there was a void that they had to fill in that category. So I appreciate it. But I really want to thank the attendance. I mean, the attendance, and I love the passion with Doug and with Keith. There's nothing that I love more than Titan Wrestling. My wife gives me a hard time. On my little Instagram, I've told people it's the Titan Tower. I call home and I tell my son I'm driving by the blue and white water tower. And I go, where do you think I am? He goes, I know, Dad. Titan Country. There's nothing more that I love than being in a room like this right now. So this is where I belong, and I'm very confident. I do believe there's a certain family element too. The attendance tonight's fantastic. John's going to talk in a second about some of the underlying reasons why we're here with the scholarship that we're starting as this event, and then of course as we move forward going into the future, how we can continue to connect to the future generation with scholarships, help these kids do what they need to do in different avenues other than wrestling, but as well as wrestling. And then just real, on the animal shirt, there's been a lot of attention, and again, I sometimes wonder if it's overkill on the animal, but then I hear stories about other schools and about the pride and how I'm starting to hear other schools are thinking about starting different traditions, so I love the fact that we have this tradition. For those that don't know the story, 30 years ago, John Kohler was a senior and I was a junior, and we were around the same weight class, and even though John says in that news article that I beat on him, it was most of the time the other way around. He had the long legs and stuck the legs in. I could not get away from him. And there were times that I had a temper at that time. I matured. So those times I was completely frustrated. But when you wrestle is a sport. When you spend that much time close to another man, you become good friends. You become good friends. And John and I used to go to the 24-hour fitness and we were not good. Lauren Ashbaugh sitting somewhere here. Lauren was an excellent. He would make weight and then he'd actually start dieting, where we made weight and then we went to Perkins. Two different strategies. None better than the other. Two different strategies. Well, until the day before weigh-ins. But we worked hard together, and when you see somebody work hard, you earn a ton of respect. And in life and in sports and in many avenues of the world that we live, you garner respect, right? You always talk about respect, and that's always earned. You can always ask for it, you can always demand it, you can always dictate it, whatever title you have in the business world, whatever title you have in anything that you do, but ultimately it's earned. And I think unbeknownst to John over that year, with a lot of people, the way that he wrestled, the way that he approached wrestling, and probably most importantly the passion, he earned a ton of respect from us. And so when the season was over, and I know the season didn't end the way that John wanted to end, in the way that it should have ended. But he threw his animal shirt at me. And the animal shirt, if you guys know the story, is actually, he had a good junior year, and his parents gave him the animal shirt into his senior year to try to encourage the young man to fulfill his talent. So it was a shirt that was a vehicle that started that year. It was serving its own purpose. And then at the end of the year, John gave me the shirt, and I think jokingly said, here, wear this next year, and then he went to the Navy. So I had a choice, but there was no choice. And unbeknownst to him, I did. I kept the shirt clean, I kept it folded, I kept it in my dresser at home. And that's one of the reasons, actually, to be honest, one of the reasons why I really look forward to my senior year was the opportunity to wear that. Now, John had long sleeves on it, right, but I was a 167-pounder come my senior year, and I needed to cut off. So my altercation was I did cut the sleeves off. At that moment, I wish I lifted more weights. But then I wore the animal shirt, of course, every match, every tournament, purposely taking off my warm-ups beforehand to make sure people knew the person I was wrestling, that shirt meant something, and that they were in for something extremely special when the whistle blew. And I think it helps position. I think it comes with a certain attitude. John was surprised that I wore it all season. When I handed it to Eric Peterson, I think he was surprised that I wore it. That when I gave it to Eric Peterson, I think I was kind of surprised that he wore it that next season. And then 5 years into it, they continued to move on. And again, the wrestling, the bad thing about the animal shirt is it divides a certain generation, because this generation is massive. We have since in the 50s when this program started. We have people like Steve Delante back there. I know I'm talking about you. Back in the so Steve was in the second, finished second in 1972. And 72 was a great year because you had you go from the 60s, right? People like Don Anderson and Steve Hansen. Steve Hansen was our first place winner in 1966. Don Anderson finished fourth in 1967. The 70s came with another great decade. And 72 was a great year with Dwayne Kilgard finishing fifth or fourth or something. Bill Allen finishing, I think at that time it was second. He finished first the following year, and then of course Steve. So a great year. A lot of people. You have Mike Smith from that same decade. Then you go into the 80s. Of course, you have Louis Massey, who was our first-time, two-time state champion and first person to finish place 4 times at the state tournament. You had Joe Gunther, who I know that I was talking to Jay, has a son now that's at the University of Iowa. You have Keith Massey, of course. And if you open up that book that's on your thing, and you wonder about the amount of respect that people have for Keith Massey, just open that thing up and you'll see all the kids, how much they reference him in stories in that book. You got people like Todd Clapper. And the one thing I was talking to Todd is there's something about, as a young man you look up and the way that Todd, you know, if it wasn't a brawl, Todd wasn't winning. Todd, I think, liked the opportunity to get into a mix. If it was a scramble, he was going to win. He was that type of wrestler. He was fun to watch. He was a person that always kept the rest of the bench on the end of their seats, paying attention. Of course, Jay Gunther in the 80s. And I think probably the wrestler, to be honest, probably the wrestler with the fewest moves. But executed it. And did extremely well. State champion, of course. And then Dan, Dan Higgins in that same era, and where's Danny at? And Danny, the only thing I can say about Danny, he swallowed me, so we never wrestled. So I don't know if he taught me how to wrestle, but the one thing that Danny taught everybody is how to practice. Danny showed up every morning, showed up every afternoon, and he practiced extremely hard. The one thing that I always remember about Danny Higgins is the work. So the generation goes on, and that's why the Titan shirt, though it started in 1985, it reflects Lewis Central Titans as an entity of who we are, the attitude that we want to be. And when someone steps on the mat and they're facing a Lewis Central Titan wrestler, it means something. It means something more than just another wrestler. It means that you're in for something. Whatever that means, but it's going to be a battle. And I love the work that Doug's doing, and I look forward to the future generation continue to build those building blocks and continue to make something special out of this. What I'm going to do is just quickly reintroduce from Thursday night the animals. I'm going to ask John Fuller to come up and we're going to play a reverse role where John introduced him on Thursday. I'm going to introduce him tonight. And there's some that are not here. Eric Peterson, I'll go through it as we go through it. So the first was John Fuller, of course. And then in 1986, myself. And then we're just going to have you guys come up and get your plaque, and you keep them this time, and then we're not going to stay up here, just go back and sit down. The next was Eric Peterson, who actually came up here Thursday, and talking about people that are traveling. That's when it really realizes to you that maybe you're doing something that people are excited about when you have people that fly or drive in long distances for a single night, just to be part of it. But Eric came in, he had to get back and work, so he left yesterday morning. He handed off to Doug Notek, our first state champion, first animal state champion. In 1990, Mark Canty wore the animal shirt. Record of 28-4. 1991, Eric Emzik, 28-3. Finished third place. Oh, they stuck together. 1992, Dan Kilgard, 46-3. And then Jeff Bellows was so good he had 2 years. He was a double animal. He went 40-0 and then 46-1. So 86-1 as the animal. Finished first and third. Adam Bendorf, 1995, record 43-0, first place. Currently lives in Harlan, Iowa. 1996, David Kilgard, 39-0, first place. forgot to mention, this animal shirt accumulated, I think it was 1,259 wins over 30 years with, how many losses was it, Doug? Like 150 or something like that, but we had the stats. It's amazing, you start breaking it down, there's just a lot of success. Must have been the shirt. 1997, Alonzo Gross, 44 and 6. 1998, Jared Jeffries, 44 and 5. Full price. 1999 and 2000, Roland Witt. I don't think Roland Witt is right. 2001 was Aaron Smith, who wasn't able to make it. 2002, Trent Paulson. 51 and 0, first place. Ames, Iowa. Oh, Travis wasn't was he here?
Nope.
Hey, we forgot to mention there will be an open mic later, so. I think we already got the note from Travis that he wants to, anyway. 2003 and 2004, Brandon Mason. Brandon went 46 and 0 and 52 and 0 as the animal. He's not here today. 2005, Tobin Ward. 2006, Mike Stamp. I know he couldn't make it. But Mike went 44 and 10, 5th place. He lives in Neola. In 2007, Jimmy Waters with a record of 48 and 0. 2008, Derek Neister. Did I say that right?
He's not here.
He's not here. He was 52 and 2 at 3rd place. And in 2009, Brett's not here. Brett Bombach. That too. 51 and 1, 1st place. 2010, Elijah Sullivan's not here. 2010, he finished 36 and 4. And then 2011, Kyle Putnam. 45 and 7, 7th place, lives here at Council Bluffs. And 2012, Zeb Wall.
Not here.
He wasn't able to make it. He was 50 and 2, 1st place. And 2013, is Zach here? Okay, Zach was 50 and 4, 2nd place. And then 2014, Ethan Ruby.
No.
Good rustlers, not good at attendance. 2015, Hayden. Oh, he's wearing his animal shirt. So, you know that he's looking at the animal shirt. I think that's the 4th or 5th one. We could go back. I know that was it Adam Bendorf that lost the? It was stolen. I heard it was a gift to some young lady, then it was stolen. There were multiple stories going around, but ultimately I think it was left at the state tournament, and I think it was probably time for a new shirt at that time. But just personally, I want to thank everyone for being here again, and thank Doug for putting this on. Thank John, Kim, and the whole group for Mrs. Butterball for working so hard on this thing. And then for all of you, thanks for your attendance and thanks for your support and participation with Lewis Central Wrestling. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Fuller. I'm here to talk about when we started to originally get this together. We figured if we're going to get everybody together, let's try to do a scholarship. Not going to be a scholarship. And we were kind of talking, me and Craig were talking about the requirements of the scholarship, and we realized if there was any requirements at all, neither one of us would have qualified for it. So this scholarship, and I know that Mrs. Jensen has one too, so now we'll have 2 scholarships, but this one is that the only requirement is you're a wrestler. You don't have to wrestle in college, you don't have to do anything, as long as you're a wrestler at Lewis Central, then you're eligible for the scholarship. So, to give the details, I'm going to have Greg Jacob come up. He runs the scholarship fund for Lewis Central, so he's gonna be able to give you the facts and figures. Now, come on up.
Thank you. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. Although I don't know if an open mic and a cash bar is a good idea, all at the same time. As John mentioned, I'm president of the Lewis Central Education Foundation. We do scholarships and classroom grants within the district. Scholarships to graduating seniors and classroom grants for educators. Last year we gave away about $33,000. And it's all volunteer-based, all volunteer fundraising. Takes a lot of time. So when these guys said they were interested in doing a scholarship, I jumped at it. So what we're going to do is the foundation is going to manage the money. We're going to manage the application process, the approval, and then we'll take care of the funds. That's the only reason I'm here, is to tell you I've got some information. If you want to donate, I've got a card with an alumni website on it. Excuse me. It's got an alumni website that we've started. You can go there and make a donation, or you can give John or Greg or any of the guys here a check tonight. So, I don't even get to talk about wrestling. Thank you.
Thanks.
We do have some seed money, so we're able to start out with that, but if anybody feels like they want to give tonight, Mrs. Butterball's here. If you have anything to do with wrestling, everybody knows who Mrs. Butterball is, so she's not hard to find. And the checks are just made out to Lewis Central Wrestling. Two other things. One of them, we have one more lifetime award, and that's going to Coach Steger. Coach, come on up. The reason I'm giving this to Coach Steger is two reasons. Thank you, Coach. One of them, he taught me how to ride legs. So that's the only way I can torment Craigie in practice. And the other one is after practice, and I don't know how many people remember this, but I know me and Craig used to sit on the sidelines and watch.
It's a story you get into.
It's not a story, it's the truth. Coach used to take Jay Gunther, who was one hell of a wrestler and a state champ. And Coach wrestled, I don't know how much Coach weighed, but probably a little bit less than that. But Jay wrestled 185 his senior year, and after practice, Coach would take Jay out and wrestle him and not use his hands. He would just use his legs. And he would beat the crap out of Jay Gunther. Which was, now, Jay was my neighbor, and he's the one who got me into wrestling. So I really appreciate Jay, but it was great to watch Coach Steger beat the crap out of him.
My memory's not very good.
With no hands, and he would continue to do it, and we got a real kick out of it. So, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
And last thing, I want to thank some people. I want to thank Kim Larson. She's done so much without her. None of this is possible. Coach Kirkard, thank you very much. Mrs. Butterball, and Craig used this the other night. Not very often do you get a microphone and people have to listen to you. But I want to thank my wife, Deanna Fuller. Without her, I'd probably be in jail. My parents, Jim and Judy Fuller, and they've done so much for me. So thank you very much. I think I'm at the end. So I think, Coach, you're back up.
Yep.
All right, just a couple more things left on the agenda tonight. Right now, we're going to move on to our featured speakers. We have two featured speakers tonight. The first one is Travis Paulson. Travis is a three-time state champ, had a record in high school of 174-3. He has numerous college and international accomplishments in wrestling, and I'm not even going to attempt to lay those out because we're talking about Lewis Central wrestling here. He's currently the assistant coach at Iowa State. So come on up, Travis.
Very thankful for the opportunity to speak tonight. But before I dive in deep to my speech, I had to clarify something. And this one's not about Trent, we'll get there. But we were known as being very competitive, but also it's all about sportsmanship. And my mom, God bless her, she was a mother to all the wrestlers, and we were at a elementary tournament, and Chad Davis, I saw him here earlier, lost in the finals, I think, close match, but didn't take his medal. And my mom brought this medal. It's about 20, 25 years old, but let's give Chad a round of applause. Let's give Chad a round of applause to come up and get this But being a part of Lewis Central, the wrestling program from '99 to 2002 is something that's just priceless to me, and I wouldn't trade anything for it. And to understand why it's so important to me, you have to rewind it a little bit. And people that knew my brother and I before right around middle school, younger age, it was usually, if they saw us coming, it was, oh, insert choice word, the twins are coming. And we were about as ornery as they came, and we're always finding ways to get in trouble. And I remember in middle school, out of 6th through 8th grade, my brother had the second highest demerits in the entire middle school, and he was proud of it. And so just the where we started and where we came from and what we learned while we were part of Lewis Central's program, from going from that and fast forwarding to after we graduated high school to graduating from Iowa State, and my brother was an NCAA champion. I was a 3-time All-American, Dean's List, and just how much my life changed from some of the things I learned while I was part of the program, and that's why I wouldn't trade it for anything. But a lot of times when our team gets brought up, I get asked a question about how were you guys able to do what you were able to do? And sometimes it's just bits and pieces, whatever you have time for, but I wanted to kind of clear it up and make it clear for everyone tonight how we were able to do some of the things. And when you think about Lewis Central Wrestling, it's always had great leadership. And I know I've heard nothing but great things about Lev, and I don't want to name a lot of names because I'll miss a lot, but I can relate personally to Massey because he was my coach. And for me, I wrestled until I was 29 years old, started in 2nd grade, so I've had a lot of coaches, and I've been coached by Olympic champs, world champs, national champs, and accomplishments don't matter. And I've never had a coach that puts everything that emulates a coach as Keith Massey. And Lewis, it's just something that, when he brought up integrity, that's huge, and you don't always see that. And it was just an honor being a part of that. And there's a few things why he was such a great leader. One was he always surrounded himself with great people. And I mean, McCall, he was an All-American at Iowa State, Schwab, Anderson, Kilgards, Baker, Smith, just everybody always came in, and it was, no one had an ego. It was never about them. It was always about the athletes and helping them accomplish their goals, and that's just something pretty special. And also, one thing about him, he created a culture and a standard, and once he set that standard, he held you to that standard. It wasn't, you're close, so you're fine. It was, you meet the standard, or I don't know how much longer you're going to be around. And there's tons of different examples, but one of them, well, first of all, with the standard, let me clarify that. It wasn't just about wrestling. A lot of times it's just be the best wrestler you can be, all about sports, but where he wanted to influence young men to be just young men of character, and it was go to class, be on time, respect your elders, just a lot of basic stuff that it just carried into everything that you need moving forward. And there's too many to list, but just the work ethic, the attitude, how he came into practice every day with just very positive, and he always had a goal and just organized. But a lot of people in this room know what I'm talking about. I won't do a good enough job explaining it, but there was a standard set. And one story that kind of stuck out to my mind, one year, my freshman year, we had a good team. I think we might have placed top 3 as a team. We had a couple of state champs or a couple of state finalists, I think 4 or 5 placers, and there was a rumor going around that a couple guys on the team made a poor decision, alcohol involved, no arrest, nobody got in trouble, but it could have easily been swept under the rug. But all that had to happen was for Massey to hear that, and of course he researches, finds out who's involved, and anybody that was even associated with it wasn't allowed to wrestle at state duels. And we could have done something that year. We had a good team, and just thinking back, that's very rare. I mean, no arrests, no real evidence. It was just, no, this is the standard. And that's a big opportunity. And to sit 4 or 5 year starters at a time like that, I mean, he brought up integrity earlier, and that's integrity. One thing that stuck out to me with him too was just a never satisfied mindset. It was always evolved, and like I remember I'd come off a match, pinning a guy or scoring a lot of points on a guy thinking I did good, and he'd be, you missed this was there earlier, you missed a score here. It was never good job, it was you can be better, or you could have. And that's so refreshing because too many coaches put emphasis on wins and losses, and win, you're good, lose, you suck. But it wasn't about, you could wrestle, all wrestlers know you could wrestle a good match and lose, or a bad match and win, but it wasn't about the wins and losses, it was about the process. And once you put the emphasis on the process instead of the result, I mean, you can go, it takes you places very fast, and Massey was great at that. Another thing about Massey is, he brought up that story earlier about there was never a guy in the room where he felt like he couldn't contribute somehow. And there's a saying that athletes don't care what you know unless they know that you care. And it was never a question that Massey cared. He'd roam the hallways and find some of the people you wouldn't even think of that would like to wrestle, but he'd find them, think about how it could help them out, and he'd get them to go out, and he genuinely wanted to change people's lives. And it was never about him. That's just a really cool thing. And also, it wasn't just about wrestling. You come in, hey, how are you doing in school? How's your family? How's everything going with your social life? Just stuff like that, that he cared about the whole process, not just the sport. And one thing, he brought up no one would outwork us, and that's true. I can testify to that. No one outworked us. We had 6 a.m. morning runs and lifts, and I remember my mom had the great idea, I think we were in 7th or 8th grade, for us to go and try one of those voluntary morning runs. And we were still pretty immature, and after we get done with the run, Trent and I were like, who the heck would volunteer for this? And I think Trent mentioned something about child abuse. But he just taught work ethic, and hard work pays off, and when you continue to do the right things, it eventually just becomes a matter of time. And then I also remember a story with those morning runs. Blake Anderson was a stud athlete for us, and I think he was a returning state champ. In the beginning of the season, he missed a few runs, and I was fortunate to be near Massey when he was talking to Blake, and he was like, Blake, where were you this morning? Coach, I didn't think they were mandatory. I thought those were volunteer runs. Oh. so you're satisfied with where you're at? So, all right, I guess I won't worry about it. But just little stuff like that, that he held people to that standard. And along with that, Coach Massey understood what buttons to push. And even like one year, I remember we were dueling Harlan. They had a couple good guys, but we beat them pretty good the year before, and we were supposed to beat them pretty good again. But he'd find something like, yeah, we might have won last year in that duel, but they out-hand fought us. They out-hand fought us. They beat the crap out of us in the tie. You're gonna let that happen again? Are you gonna respond? And he just find a way to like, I'm not letting that happen. I'm gonna go get these guys. And another one, I remember he used to wrestle us hard, and we'd do grind matches, and he'd be going, I mean, he wrestled in college. He still had a few tricks, and definitely better technique than at the time that I had. And I remember in certain situations, I might concede a position, or he'd win a situation on toughness, and he'd whisper in my ear, whoever the guy's name was at the time, this is what Sinius wants, or this is what Galloway wants. And that's all the motivation you need as a wrestler. And he just knew what buttons to push. And another state duels, that story I was talking about earlier with state duels about integrity, we had to do a vote. The guys, the starters that were going to wrestle in this, if we wanted to send our team because we were going to forfeit so many and that we wouldn't be able to compete. And we did an unofficial vote in the locker room, and everyone was like, no, we're not wrestling. I mean, there's no way we can win, and we have to cut all this weight, and all selfish reasons. But we all agreed that we were going to say, no, we're not going to go. And I remember we lined up in weight class order, and I was 112, so I was sitting in the front, and everyone was behind me. And Massey was talking to the team, and he said, all right, we got to vote, and we got to figure out if we're going to send a team to these state duels. So raise your hand if you don't want to wrestle on this. I'll completely understand. And I'm in the front, and I think everyone's agreeing with me. Everyone's sticking to this brotherhood. And so I raised my hand, and I'm the only one that raised my hand. And immediately Massey said, you don't want to wrestle? I can't even think of the guy's name, but he was, what was his name? Barnes. Yeah, Barnes. I won state that year, and he got third. He was my closest match at the state tournament. And it wasn't about, I didn't care about wrestling him. I was 15 pounds over, but in front of everybody, oh, you don't want to go to state duels because you'll have Barnes again. And it was a close match in the semis, and I didn't care about making weight. I mean, I had a point to prove after that, and he just understood exactly what to say at the right time. And I mean, just a special, special coach. But another thing that was great about the team was it was a brotherhood. And you never had to look very far. If you wanted to get an extra drill in or an extra run in, there was always someone willing, because as a group, collectively, we wanted to accomplish something special. And you guys sitting in that row, got announced for districts, build each other up. Great teams, they're a family. And they bring out the best in each other, and they don't accept anything but the best. And part of that brotherhood, when I'm talking about accountability, there'd be different situations, like we were talking about those morning runs. If someone didn't show up, we'd grab them in the hallway. Where were you? You gotta hold people to that standard once it's created. And I remember, clear as day, I was wrestling Trent and just kicking the crap out of him. It wasn't close. And I remember grabbing him, getting right up in his face and saying, we both know that you're not on my level, but you can at least fight. You can at least fight. And that, I think, kind of woke him up. But with our team, too, nothing was given. My junior year, I tore my ACL, decided to try to wear a brace and compete that year. But I remember, I think, second week back, I was getting ready to get lined up, and I had a wrestle off with the returning state medalist. And then the next week, I had another wrestle off, but it was like I was a returning state champ, but nothing was given because you gotta prove, you gotta earn your spot, and you gotta fight for it. And it's not something I was upset about because in competition, they're not gonna take it easy on you. And so that's huge. Iron sharpens iron, and that's one thing that we did. We pushed each other, and we fought every day to take each other to that next level. And the last thing, we had great buy-in. And with that buy-in, we talked about coming into practice with a goal every day. And you can set long-term goals, but you'll lose sight if you don't set the plan to get there and talk about what you need to do each day to get there. And so going to practice with a goal of, maybe I was wrestling whoever, and you set a goal of getting 10 takedowns, or if you want to work on escapes, hey, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to get ridden for longer than 20 seconds. You have to set goals every day, and that's where buy-in starts. And also coming in with an attitude. I know you've heard attitude is contagious, but it's huge how contagious it is. It literally can shape the chemistry of your team. If you come in every day with an attitude to put in work, then your teammates are going to have that same attitude. It's going to spread. Lastly, being coachable. Having the mindset to learn. And sometimes people get caught up about, oh, coach is yelling at me, coach is hard on me, but you have to have the maturity to understand what's the motivation behind what he's saying. He wants you to see you accomplish your goals, for you to be your best. And so never lose sight of that. And buy-in, I was told this story by Bobby Douglas. He was a great coach, and it kind of just, it's hard to explain what buy-in looks like, but this nails it. And there was a 19th century French tightrope walker. His name was Jean Francis Blondin. I'm sure I butchered his name. But he was the first guy to walk across Niagara Falls. And it was a 1,100-foot rope, and he was 160 feet high above some dangerous rapids. And first time he did it with one of those beams where you balance, and they're like, who thinks I can do it without the beam? You can do it, you can do it. He did that. Who thinks I can do it blindfolded? You can do it, you can do it. He did that. And then the next thing was, who thinks I can do this pushing a wheelbarrow? You can do it, you can do it. Who thinks I can push someone in this wheelbarrow and go across? Oh, you can do it, you can do it. All right, I need a volunteer. And buying in is getting in that wheelbarrow. It's total commitment. It's whatever your coach is telling you to do, buy in, get in that wheelbarrow, believe in that system to your core, because that'll take you places. But it's been an honor. Go Titans.
Thanks, Travis. One more feature speaker. We're going to have Pastor Keith Nestor come up here. Keith graduated in '92, and like most of us here, Keith didn't go on to have a career in wrestling, but he credits wrestling for some of his success. So welcome, Keith Nestor.
About the only place where I don't have to usually lower the mic a whole lot. It's good. Well, when Doug called me personally to invite me to this event, I was very honored. When he asked me to speak, I thought, well, he's either really desperate or he's got to be joking. And then when he told me who else was speaking, I thought he was absolutely crazy. Because why would somebody interested in wrestling want to hear from someone like me who never even had a winning record in high school, let alone any state titles or even made it to state, although Coach Bless stuck me in my senior year with the mat mates. So I got to the end of the back door. I had one of my friends say, how'd you get down here? But the more we talked about it over the phone, I began to think about it. It became clear why I think my story matters. And then listening to all of you tonight and understanding what Lewis Central Wrestling's all about, I was just sitting back there going, wow, the story's the same for everyone, whether you're a state champion or whether you're a kid who's never wrestled a day in his life and he shows up for day one on practice. You're treated the same. You're given the same amount of respect and you're given the same amount of value from your coach. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about my story and what Lewis Central Wrestling has done for me. My family moved to Council Bluffs the summer right after my freshman year in high school, and we had been living in the inner city of Des Moines since I had been in second grade. And I know it might not be very obvious to you looking at me now, but I was not an athletic kid growing up. I tried to because I thought it would help me fit in with kids at school, so I tried different sports and different things, but it just wasn't my thing. I was always the smallest kid, and I was always the last one picked for every dodgeball game in gym class, and so naturally I hated sports. I was good at music, but beyond that, nothing ever really seemed to matter for me in school. I didn't really care about everything. I was a pretty horrible student. I was very disrespectful to my teachers, and I had a major chip on my shoulder towards the bigger, stronger, more athletic kids, because they wouldn't give a kid like me the time of day. I was lazy. I didn't care. I had no concept of what it meant to work hard or discipline. If I didn't want to do something, I just found a way to avoid doing it. Well, when I arrived at Lewis Central, I knew I was in a totally different type of environment. The kids at this school seemed more friendly, and I really, really liked it here. But it's tough moving into a new school when you're a freshman or a sophomore and everyone had grown up together and it seemed like everyone had all the friends they would need. But I wanted to be part of something. And for some reason, I decided to try wrestling, even though I had never even been to a wrestling match. Except for the one at Vets Auditorium in Des Moines where Hulk Hogan picked up King Kong Bundy and dropped him on the mat. That was pretty cool. I'd never been at it, but I figured since there were weight classes, maybe I had a chance because I would be competing against kids roughly my size. So I cut my sweet mullet that I was rocking. Some of you guys might remember that. It was awesome. And I joined the team. And right away I felt like I was part of something awesome. I remember our team captain was Mark Vicani. He probably didn't even have a clue about this, but I remember him coming up to me in the hallway one day, and he was actually talking to me about the team. And I couldn't believe that, because here was Mark. He was this senior, and he was an awesome athlete, and he was talking to me, a kid that nobody even knew. And I was excited to learn about wrestling. I remember buying my first pair of wrestling shoes. My parents were asking, "Are you sure you really want to do this?" Because something like this was so far out of my character. But I was fired up. I mean, how hard could it be, right? This was before any practices. I figured I was in decent shape. I was pretty hyper. I even practiced a few moves on my little sister once in a while. I mean, how hard could this possibly be, right? I had no idea what I was getting into. Well, that year, as you can probably imagine, I got thrown around like a rag doll. I was beaten down by kids even smaller than me. And I was dominated in almost every way possible a human being could be dominated in. I hated every second of it. It hurt. I had to cut like 5 pounds, all right? To make 103, I was 108 walking around, so it was tough making that 103 pounds. It was ridiculous. It's tougher than anything I ever thought possible. Well, what was really happening was that I was exposed. See, that's what wrestling does to you. It exposes who you really are. Because in wrestling, you can't hide behind other people, and you can't make excuses. You can't blame someone else for what happens on the mat. It's just you. You know what? That was new to me. I had always found a way to make excuses for myself. I used my size as a way out because I figured no matter how hard I would try at something, I was destined to lose because I was too small. And that attitude had spilled over into so many areas of my life, but I had no realization of it. And when I began wrestling, all those excuses quit working because as we heard earlier, there was a standard set. And even someone like me was going to be held to that standard. And this was a shock to me, and I wasn't ready for it. It seemed like the only thing I could do was just to hang in there until the season was over, and at least I could have some dignity because I didn't quit the team, right? I made it through the whole season. Wasn't going to quit like some other kids had. And for some reason, that was pretty important to me. I wasn't sure why at the time, but it was. Well, anyway, when I stepped off the mat at the end of my sophomore year, I was convinced that I was done with wrestling. I would never do that again. Well, that all changed one day when I was walking down the hall, and Coach Bleth stopped me in the hall. And he said, "Nestor, I hope you are preparing yourself for a great season." I apologize for the bad impersonation. I used to be a lot better at it. All right. I was totally shocked that he stopped me in the hallway to say that. You know, earlier someone said, you know, I think it's coach to never give up on a kid. Well, now I know that was part of the plan, right? I was shocked. I'm like, yeah, and I said to him, I said, "Yeah, right, coach. Me, I was a disaster last year." And he looked me in the face, and he said, "Hey, we need you on the team at 112 pounds. I'll see you in practice." Let me tell you guys something. I had so much respect and admiration for my coaches and for my teammates. And that was literally the first moment in my life that I had felt like anyone wanted me on the team. And it was an amazing feeling. In that split second, I'll be honest with you, my life changed right then and there. "I'll be there, coach," is what I said to him. That was my commitment. And you know what? I was. My junior and senior years, I was there. I went to every morning run. I became an animal in the weight room. I finally hit puberty, and things started to come together for me a little bit physically. And the harder I worked, like the stronger I got. I even had the school record at Lewis Central for pull-ups for about 3 hours. I did 26 pull-ups, and some kid did 27 later that day. I was so mad. But the fact that I even cared about something like that was a testimony to the change that was happening in me. Because I was beginning to understand what it meant to work hard, no matter how badly my body was hurting, or how many times I would lose. See, I'm going to share something with you that a lot of guys in this room don't know about, and that's that one of the best lessons I learned from wrestling was how to lose. I remember we were at the state tournament one year. Doug Notek was in there. We were at a hotel room. He has no remembrance of this, probably not. And he said, "Man, it would suck to be a wrestler and lose all the time." He didn't know who I was. I never heard it before. He's like, I mean, can you imagine what it must be like? How humiliating it must be to be a guy who gets their blood kicked every time they go out there. And I was like, yeah. I'll tell you something, I know all about that. It's pretty funny. But I learned how to lose, which was hard for me because of my small man complex, I had a hard time. So, I couldn't let everybody see that I was vulnerable, right? I had to find a way to maintain my dignity no matter what in life, right? But in wrestling, I couldn't help it. But what I learned was that losing a match didn't make me a worthless person. My coaches taught me that. My teammates taught me that. Losing a match didn't mean that everyone would hate me. And it didn't mean even that people would want me off the team. I also learned that some of the biggest lessons in life come from failure rather than success. It all depends on how you look at it. Well, I had a lot of practice. My coaches and teammates were teaching me that it felt good to push yourself. And I remember Keith Massey preaching that to us over and over. You have to push yourself. You have to push yourself over and over. You guys have heard that. And I was learning for the first time in my life what that would mean. And it was starting to spill over. I learned that I had to be responsible for myself. And that by making excuses or doing things halfway, I was not only letting myself down, but also the people in my life that care about me. But I learned that pushing myself to do things I couldn't do or didn't want to do, that would make me grow and achieve. My junior year, I felt that standard in a lot of areas of my life that the coaches laid down, and I went from being a straight D student to being a straight A student, almost. I made it a personal goal to graduate with a 3.0 GPA. And that would mean that I would have to get almost straight A's for the last 2 years of high school, which seemed impossible, but for the first time in my life, I was going to give that a try. I was beginning to get on some people's nerves, though, because I had become so driven. Some of my friends didn't understand it. My parents didn't always understand it. I was addicted to like pain and work, and it was crazy, because I was still losing, but I didn't seem to care. I remember once my mom came storming into my room. I was talking to her about this earlier today. She has no memory of this either. She came storming into my room, woke me up, and she's like, "Are you on steroids?" Yeah, I'm 112 pounds on steroids. But see, some people just can't understand how I can keep getting my butt kicked every single day, every single match, every single Thursday night, and 4 times on Saturday. How is that helping me become a better person? But I tell you what, it was. I became that kid in gym class, you know, the one everybody hates? The one who actually trains to run a mile? See, in 10th grade, my time was 8 minutes and 38 seconds. I actually remember that. I was puking at the end of it. My senior year, I set a personal goal to run it in under 6 minutes. And I did it in 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Everyone around me thought I was stupid for caring, but here's the thing, I was learning that it feels good to push yourself, win or lose. Now, you guys knew that when you were born, it seems like, okay? But I was just figuring it out as a junior in high school, and it became very important to me. Now, I was so frustrated by my lack of success on the mat. I was varsity my last 2 years, and I managed to squeak out a few wins here and there. But I wanted more than anything to be good, mainly because I wanted to contribute to my team. I wanted to bring something valuable to the table, and I felt like because I wasn't a winner on the mat, I was a disappointment. Now, that wasn't because of anything anyone else did or said to me. It was my own deal. Because you gotta remember, like I said, I loved my coaches and I loved my teammates. And I wanted to please them more than anything in this world, but it felt like there was nothing I could do. I had to face the fact that I was just a crappy wrestler. I do have one story. My wife was like, "You gotta tell that story, you gotta tell that story." This was my sophomore year, okay? It was these weird interactions I had with Coach Bleth in the hallway outside his classroom, which I wasn't even one of the students. So I had every reason to avoid it, but he still managed to grab me. Sophomore year, right, my record, I'm 3rd string. There's like Fred McCoy, and then the kid from the school for the deaf, and then there was me, right? Thorping House, remember him? Yeah, I used to like point the other way, he'd turn around, and I'd take him down. Well, Bled stops me in the hall again. He says, "Nestor, we're counting on you tonight at the double duel." I'm like, "Why? Do you need more water?" He says, no, Fred's sick or something, and Steve, we don't know. You're wrestling varsity tonight. I'm like, I'm gonna puke right now. Varsity? I've wrestled like, 10 matches my whole life. He says, "Yeah, that's right, you're varsity tonight." So I'm like, all right. I tried to find a way out, you guys. I wanted to go home so badly, but he was counting on me. When Coach looked at me and said, "I'm counting on you for something," the last thing I was gonna do was let him down by not being there. So I decided I was going to go out there and do the best I could in these 2 matches. Well, man, we had this match, and you know how it is when they used to have it at the old junior high school where they bring the light down, and it was like crazy, intense, and everything. And my teammates got around me, and I remember they were standing in front of me, and they were smacking me upside my face. I remember Eric M. grabbed me, and he's like, "You're going to beat this kid." And I started to believe him, I'm like, "Yeah, I can do this." And they're just like, "You can win, you can win." And then I remember, it was pretty funny. I think it was Skylar or somebody like that. When the other kid came out to the middle of the match, and I was supposed to go out and shake his hand. He goes, "Look at him! He's weak! You can take this kid!" I'm like, "I can!" So I thought I'm gonna stare him down, and I go out there, and I was just like. terrified. The lights went down. That big spotlight comes on. Everybody was getting ready. I was the first person to go out on the mat because I was 103 pounds that year. National anthem, I mean, I was terrified, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something. I don't care what happens, I'm gonna attack this kid with all I've got. And I'm ready to go. And they call my name, and as I get to run out, you know how the mat kind of curls up on the side like that? Yeah. I hit that thing and just, man, face planted right down there on the mat. And the whole school just, I mean, what do you do in that moment, right? So I just stood up and went, gosh. And I won that match, 12-4, you know? Now, what I found out later was, you know, I was like third string on my team, he was like fourth string on his. Everybody else had gotten hurt or sick or whatever at his school, but you know what, I didn't care because I finally had done something, you know? But I just wanted to be good, you guys. I really wanted that so badly. I know some of you guys that are just like studs, you know, you might take that for granted, not because you don't work hard, but because you just don't know what it's like to get your butt kicked all the time. And I just wanted to be good. And it was starting to wear on me, like, you know, towards the part of my senior year that just wasn't going to happen for me. Then one day, Coach Massey called a few of those seniors into his classroom to talk. You know, decorated wrestlers like Dan Kilgard and Eric Barrett and Chris Harris. And then there was me. He told us that as team captains, he was counting on us for our leadership. And I stopped and I said, whoa, hold on a minute. What am I doing in here? I can't be a team captain. I suck. And he looked me dead in the face. He said, Nestor, you may have not had a great career on the mat, but you have had an amazing career in the mat room. And I need that leadership on this team. Wow, you don't even know how powerful those words were to me. Because I was learning that even the coaches whose job it was to win had a bigger picture in mind, see? They weren't just building a team, they were building men. And they understood that for 90% of the wrestlers that join a team, they'll step off the mat at the end of their senior year and never again return. They understood what wrestling does beyond the mat. Because life is full of wrestling. It's just that the mat changes, doesn't it? What you learn in the mat room at Lewis Central can bring you success in whatever you wrestle with in life. And that's why wrestling is so incredible. It teaches you things about yourself that nothing else can. You know, I mean, here's the deal that we all know. We all can't be Paulsons. We all can't be Kelgards. So, you know, I'm speaking now to the current wrestlers. So, if wrestling to you is only valuable if you come out with a medal around your neck, then I feel badly for you. Because there's so much more that wrestling can give you than a title or a place on a wall. That stuff is amazing, by the way. But what's also amazing are the lessons and disciplines that come from a sport where excuses don't work, and a program like Lewis Central where teammates and coaches encourage any student who shows up to give their best effort and push themselves to do things they never thought possible. I graduated high school with a 3.2 GPA, a two-time varsity letterman from the best wrestling team in the state of Iowa, Lewis Central High School. And the lessons I learned in wrestling have stuck with me my entire life. I still push myself to be the best I can be as a husband, as a father, as a pastor, and as a business owner. But without Lewis Central Wrestling, I wouldn't know how to do that. So when life gets tough and I feel pain or discouragement, I remember to this day the words of my coaches. You've got to go. And when I experience failure or disappointment, I remember that as long as I don't give up or quit, I can still contribute to the lives of others. I can still be a leader. And I wouldn't know how to do that without Lewis Central Wrestling. Lewis Central Wrestling has given so much to me, so thank you, Coach Blatt. Thank you, Coach Massey. Thanks for teaching me that I was still important to you guys, regardless of my record. And thank you to my teammates for accepting me as I was, but challenging me and pushing me to grow. And thank you to the current coaches and wrestlers at Lewis Central. who continue to inspire and instill within their students the life lessons that wrestling can give. Because life is full of wrestling. So may we all continue to push ourselves to never quit and to always grow. Thanks for listening.
We just have a few recognitions to make here. We had a team of the Little Central Team of the Century. Team of what do we call this? What do you guys call it? Team of the. Would anybody from the wrestling team in 2001 please stand up? 2001. There we go. 3 of you. All right, this is the team that broke records at the state tournament. We had 188.5 points and 6 state champions. And you're looking at the 3 of them right there. Yeah. Would anybody who was a Little Central Wrestling cheerleader or a dance team member please stand up? All right. Any Little Central administrators? That's okay. We don't need Anybody who's ever coached at any level at Little Central, junior high, high school, volunteer, paid, assistant, head coach, please stand up. Now, all the wrestlers, all those little wrestlers will stand up. All right, you were state qualified, remain standing. All right, if you were a state place winner, remain standing. If you were a finalist, remain standing. If you were a champion, remain standing. Look at that. If you were a 2-time champion, remain standing. If you were a 3-time champion, remain standing. I don't know if that was appropriate to do after Keith just talked about that. But it was on the agenda, so I couldn't deviate. All right, I think that's going to wrap up the program for tonight. We do have posters up here. If anybody wants to take home a Little Central Wrestling poster, we're going to save one up here that we would like any Little Central wrestler to sign it. We're going to cover this thing with signatures and maybe sell it to someone for money for the scholarship. And then a couple things we talked about: contributing, building a community here. I want to point out Coach Massey. I didn't mention earlier, but Coach Massey is coaching a youth program now. The Panther program, we hired him a year ago, and he is running that program now. And we call our team Powerhouse Wrestling, but it's still a Panther organization. And so I just wanted to point that out. He's doing a great job. And you know, with someone like him coaching our youth, it's going to make us high school coaches look good, because they're going to be ready to go when they get there. We won't have to do much with them. But we do have an opportunity tomorrow. There's a youth district wrestling tournament, and if anybody wants to give back right away, we need volunteers tomorrow to help out at that tournament at Iowa Western. Also, there's NAIA Nationals coming up in a few weeks. They're still looking for help with that at Iowa Western. If you are interested in helping work at that tournament, work at the tables, get in touch with me and I'll help you figure out how you can get down there on the floor and get close to that, get close to the action. And then also, remember every December, the second weekend in December, we have a wrestling tournament here that we host, and we're always looking for help with that. So if you guys, I'll take that information from those sheets on the table, and I'll create an email list, and I'll send out whenever we have opportunities to help. I'll send stuff out to you guys, and I'll also update you on recipients and scholarships, and try and build this community and keep you all informed of what's going on with Lewis Central Wrestling. So at this time, we need to do anything else? Ready? All right. This time, who has stories? Feel free to get up and mingle while we're telling stories here. I know we've been sitting a while, but we got a story here.
I just thought that I need to get Travis up here again. All these animals come through. Lewis Central Wrestling is from all the animals that never got to wear a shirt. I thought Travis ought to have one.
Yes!
Anybody else?
Leave it open.
Yeah, we'll just leave it open. Oh, here we go.
Well, my name's Bob Adkins. Nobody even knows who I am in the wrestling program at Lewis Central. I'm older than dirt when it comes to the wrestling program at Lewis Central. In fact, this very dirt we're sitting on tonight, I used to farm many years ago. So I wasn't sure how old I am. But I just think it's very important that everybody knows just how important I was to the wrestling program at Lewis Central. Wayne, would you like to come up here? Back when Dwayne, as we all know, the Kilgore family's had a great part of Lewis Central Wrestling. And when Dwayne was a freshman, I was a senior. And Dwayne was a pretty fair wrestler, but he had no self-confidence. And I thought to myself, what can I do for this program? So I would wrestle him in practice and roll over on my back and let him beat the senior. And I think it did something for him. Because he turned out to be a pretty fair wrestler, as did his children. So I just wanted you to know that I did play a part.
My name is Steve Wyborn. I used to be the wrestling coach at Lewis Central Junior High at the time, then became middle school, from 1971 to 1982, 12 years. If you wrestled for me during those years, would you please stand up? I taught for 40 years at Lewis Central, all in the junior high, middle school, and I just loved it. The first time I saw wrestling was at Eastside Junior High. It's now AL. And I was a 8th grader, and I went to a match. I saw these guys come out in these tights and shorts. I go, there's no way I'm going to come around running around looking like that. Well, I went out the next year. Some kids encouraged me to go out, so I did too. And I did okay as a 9th grader, and I wrestled 3 years in high school. And then I went to Peru State College, and we didn't have wrestling until my senior year. So I had the distinction of being the only senior on the team. And I was lousy also. I just used to get my head bashed in. The coach hated me. He told me later, he goes, I asked him one time after I finally won a match, I go, I bet you hoped I would quit, didn't you? And he goes, yeah, I did. He said, I saw you come to practice. I go, oh crap, another slow practice. Well, when I did win that match, he says, Wymore, you've gone from nothing to something. I loved it. This guy was hard-nosed. He was an ass. But to hear that from him, and I only went out because I knew I was going to go into teaching. And somebody said, you know, if you can be a coach, that will help you get a job. Well, wrestling was the only thing available, and they were bringing it in. And halfway through the season, I too was ready to quit. But then somebody else said, you can't quit for this coach, because he's the type of guy that is asked to go out and evaluate teachers. Now, the only thing I can think of is, okay, with my luck, he's the one that's going to come and evaluate me. And if I quit wrestling, oh, jeez, I'll never get a job. I won't stay here very long. I got the job. I understand he wrote a pretty decent recommendation for me. And so I started in '71. And I never said this to any of my wrestlers. We did the daily dozen every day. That's what we used to warm up in college. And from what I've been told by former wrestlers, those were some of the toughest warm-ups we did. There were 12 different exercises that we did. And we were going to make sure that we were really good and loose. My job, I felt, as the junior high coach, was one, get them into conditioning skills, teach them some of those, learn to get along with each other, camaraderie. Teachers would come to me and say, such and such has been acting up in class. So I had to be the whipping boy. And so when I hear about that, I talk to the kid, I says, you gotta do the gauntlet. So the kid would have to wrestle everybody on the team. And I remember one kid, he went home and told his parents, because they told me later, I hate Wymore. I hate him. I'm gonna quit. Well, the next day I made the captain. I'm catching cold too. And he turned out to be a great wrestler for me. Something that I always used was, you only fail if you fail to try. And I know a lot of kids didn't wrestle after 8th grade, but they sure tried for me. And I can't ask anything more. And some of you guys that are still here, I have all the pictures from our team. So if you want to take a second, come find yourselves, see how much hair you had. On top, that is, not here. And how skinny you look like. You look like you're all anorexic sometimes. I mean, you were pretty thin. But I know the muscles came on later, because I knew the high school coaches would get that meat on you eventually. But those were the best 12 years, and I agree. Helping to build character. I also tried to teach them to win and to lose. Teaching them to lose was the hardest part. Teaching them to win, that's okay. But it's the losing. And I'm sure many of you, all of you can realize, especially now that you're adults, how many character building moments you had because of wrestling. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but in the long run, just the fact that you're here and you participate in wrestling, you always won. You really did. Thank you very much.
Travis said a lot of great things about Massey, and he's obviously a great guy, one of the greatest coaches we've ever had. But he didn't really say any of the corny stuff that Massey used to say, and I wanted to share some of that. I remember when we were in high school, the phrase, "What's up, dog?" started to get popular. So Massey would always go to us and say, "What's up, canine?" And then he'd say, "What's up?" and he'd go, "The ceiling." And he was our Spanish teacher, and you'd ask him questions, and he'd go, "Sí, señor. Sí, señor. Sí, señor," over and over again with a weird look on his face. And Travis mentioned child abuse. I remember every time we were messing around in practice and he caught us, he'd give us a lead finger on our school with his wedding ring, and that's why I said child abuse. But I also remember junior year, when Travis tried to throw our heavyweight. He wasn't even our heavyweight because he couldn't make weight. He was 330 pounds or something like that. And he tore his ACL. We found out he tore his ACL, and we were both bawling like babies. And Keith brought us into the auditorium. He just had just a positive talk with us. It's not the end of the world. Champions deal with adversity. God never gives you more than you can handle. And just coached Travis through this hard time. And with rehab, helped him with that. Steve was a part of it. He went on to be an undefeated state champ without an ACL that year. And Keith just does amazing things, and he is corny, but he's one of the greatest ever.
I'm a doctor, so I know how these colds get caught, so I'm going to write this off. So I don't get colds going around. One thing I realized tonight is I owe Keith Nestor an apology. I did 27 pull-ups in 3rd grade. Sorry, man. Sorry. Freak of nature. The scariest day of my life was during wrestling season during high school. And I remember I was in the back seat of one of those Suburbans that we drove to the tournaments up in Fort Dodge. And that was the day that I learned that Coach Blath is colorblind. And the stoplights weren't up and down, they were sideways. So red and green, well, they looked the same to Coach Blath. And yeah, there was some screeching of tires, and there was no accident, but yeah, Coach Blath is colorblind. One lesson that I learned from Dwayne Kilgore, I think I was probably 7 years old. And taught me a lesson that stuck with me my whole life. And kids club, small kids. And at the end of practice, he called us all together in a little bit of a pep talk. And he talked about the importance of wrestling with your heart and doing it for yourself. If you ever want to be truly good at something in life, you have to do it for yourself. And he got emotional. And I remember the emotion that he had. It really drove that lesson home to me. That if you really want success in anything in life, you have to do it for yourself. Whether it be parenting, whether it be in business, whether it be religious, whatever it is, you have to have it in your own heart. And I thank you, Dwayne, for that lesson you taught me. Thank you.
My name is Josh. I graduated in 04. Not good at talking in public, but I got a couple of stories. One involves Travis. Goes back to, I think it was my sophomore year. Yeah. When we were in Padilla's computer class, all of a sudden Travis is getting rowdy, starts to try to wrestle anybody that he wants. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting backed up in the corner, and then Trent comes over, backs me up. And all of a sudden we have a 1-on-3 wrestling match in the computer room. And then Travis brings over another buddy. And so we have a fatal 4-way in the computer room. And Mrs. Padilla's like yelling at us, "Everybody break it up, break it up." So you never knew what Travis and Trevor were going to be up to. Want to say there was also my my sophomore year. We went up to a wrestling mat up in Carroll. In wrestling at JV, pretty much always, since I had the larger, stronger upperclassmen ahead of me on the varsity squad. I had a wrestling match that pretty much went to the very end seconds of the third period. And you could always look over and see Coach Massey, you know, yelling at you, you know, arm bar, chicken wing, anything and everything you could do, even though you had nothing, no energy left in you. And you could always look over and see the coaches, you know, yelling at you to do something because they knew you had just that little bit of energy left. And I'm not sure if it came down, if I won or that other kid won, but the coaches came out and, you know, picked you up off the mat, even though your feet were dragging behind you like a wet rag. But, you know, you always learn never to give up, even to the very end. And after all the rest of the matches, between Paulsons, Andersons, Stamps, Davis brothers, you know, if you ever lost or won, they always had something else, just a few extra cents to try to make you a better person. So I guess that's more or less, you know, the family that you grew up to be with.
My name's Lou Massey. Most of you know me. How I first got acquainted with Lewis Central Wrestling. I got a job after I got out of college. Can you guys hear me all right? I got a job after I got out of college. My wife and I both taught at Underwood. You all know where that is, a little town up the road. And I just got out of college. She had already taught school. And got the wrestling coach's job at Underwood. You always wonder, what kind of coach are you going to be when you get out of college like that? But I had my mind made up. If you get on the mat with us, we're kicking your butt. That's the way I felt. They had a new principal that year who had been teaching for many, many years and coaching girls basketball many, many years in western Nebraska where they didn't have wrestling. He didn't know anything about it. They had to weigh in, the principals had to weigh in, everybody, between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. He would weigh them, they had to certify the paper. And he said to me after a couple of weeks, this wrestling is kind of stupid. Right away, I knew he was going to be my buddy. And I go, oh, why is that? Well, the kids come in here and they get on the scale and they weigh this much to make weight. Between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. And then they walk out of there after they make weight and they go get a drink of water and they weigh more than what their weight class is. Then they go eat something and they weigh more than that. This wrestling's kind of stupid, isn't it? I said, well, the rules say you got to make that weight between 7 and 7:30. Well, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it's not fair anyway, because you get seniors who are more mature than a freshman wrestling a freshman. Now, how can that be fair? I said, well, the rules are they got to weigh the same. Yeah, but they're much more mature as a senior. Well, that's the way it is. Some people are big and some aren't. So anyway, it's our first match coming up that year. Now, remember, this is the first time he'd been around wrestling. We were wrestling, I was in Underwood. We were wrestling Lewis Central. Where's Dwayne Kilgore? Stand up, Dwayne, so everybody can see you. You see that rascal? He was a freshman on Lewis Central's team. I had a senior. Remember? This sport's not fair. I had a really good senior. And those days they had ties. He and Dwayne and Phil Dillard had a tie, 2-2. I was boiling about that stupid principal. We got this freshman, Kilgore, picking on my senior. They had a tie. So I didn't say anything to the principal, but I couldn't stand it until the next morning I got back to school. And I said, how fair was that match last night where we had the freshman having a tie with my senior? And that's how I first got acquainted with Lewis Central, was Dwayne Kilgore. And I watched that rascal the whole year because he really had it together. And the principal, I'll tell you what, how I am. Just so you know, in case you ever cross me. It's going to be very subtle how I get even. The principal had a third grader. After wrestling season, I made sure I got the little kids over in the gym. Made sure his boy was with him, so I could teach the little guys how to wrestle after the season, so they could go to some little kids tournaments. And when you got little kids, if you want them to like something, all you have to do is praise the behavior that you want to continue. It is so easy. Praise the behavior you want to continue. And I made sure I gave him that principal's son, a lot of praise when he did things the way I wanted him to. And so finally, I left there that year and went over to school for the deaf. As the time went by, that principal's son was in the lineup at Underwood. He went out for wrestling. He didn't play basketball. I don't have anything against basketball. I'm just letting you know that's the way I get even. I want to thank every one of you for coming over here. Dwayne, thanks for making that principal see the light.
We're going to do one more of these, and then we'll enjoy the rest of the night.
My name is Eric Bendorf, and whenever I meet someone, they're like, Bendorf, the wrestler. No, that's my brother's, but I was the first of the group to wrestle, but never achieved what they did. There's one other person that nepotism is